Hey, welcome everybody to Bridging the Seen and Unseen. I am your host. I'm Shane McLain, and Gwen is on here, but she's taking care of some stuff in the back. But I hope you guys have had a great week. Uh, we it has gone by way too fast. It just seems like the older I get, the faster, time goes by, because it just seems like a couple months ago, like it seemed like a couple weeks ago, we were just in February, and I mean, it's just going by way too fast. And I'm 48 years old, so I mean, I'm hoping it slows down a little bit. But tonight, guys, we have an amazing person coming on. Um, she she's got a lot of experience with communication on the other side, and I look forward to speaking with her. So let's bring on the co-founder of Ladrona, Stacia Wills.
Hi, how are you doing,
Hey,
Shane?
hey, thank you for coming on. I
Oh,
appreciate it.
I'm excited to be on. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. And this is the most laid back. It'll be like we're sitting on the couch, just
Or
very
by the
organic.
pool.
Yeah, just very organic, and it just
Right.
kind of flows. Can you
Perfect.
tell everybody who you are, a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, my name is Stacia Wills. I am the co-founder of the healing group Wardruna. My dearest friend Gina Barton and I created a healing network 20 years ago based on downloads from my spirit guides that I was getting. Both Gina and I are shamans, and as I'm talking, I'm getting big flashes of light over here. Um, we both had generational trauma. My grandparents came from the Carpathian Mountains,
Oh wow.
and yes, and we're known as the Rusins. It's a very small indigenous tribe. Everybody has the gifts. I just happen to be a really creepy one in the family, known as the Molefor. Also, with that is I broke the generational trauma. And I kind of stopped it in the tracks. I am the last one to actually be abused by a family member. So, I stood up to them, and I knew that I did not want to be like what the elders in the family were. As much as I love my family and I have healed and I have forgiven them, I did not want to be a product of them. So, as I'm an adult and I'm journeying through life, I started getting little downloads from spirit guides, and they started telling me how to heal. And they told me about this healing network that I needed to build. And they showed me that it was going to be connected. They kept saying it's a we and not an I, and we will bring you the people. So in the meantime, I go through a divorce and I build literally overnight an occupational health and safety that landed in a good portion of the NRG power plants. I landed a massive contract that honestly I should have never landed. I mean, I was only doing drug testing. They made me a full blown occupational health and safety and said, we will build you. And they did. But with the structure of that occupational health and safety is literally how Gina and I, who God love her, helped me through running that national, business. I mean,
Oh
I
wow.
absolutely love her. And I will tell you later how I actually met her. It was an amazing story. So we built Wardruna based on how an occupational health and safety with I was having contractors and physicians and HIPAA laws that when we started putting this in place and healing our own trauma, we started doing things like Reiki and yoga and meditation and acupuncture therapy. Then we started actually going, well, we actually need therapy. There's only so much you can deny that you need therapy. So we started going into therapy. I met a wonderful therapist. She's amazing at EMDR and DBR. So she is probably one of the top out there. She is equine based. These horses are amazing. And we just kept bringing more and more. We started getting holistic doctors in. We had Cleveland Clinic sit down with us. And, I get clients, they come to me. And of course, I speak to the ancestors. So when you sit down in front of me, I start speaking to your ancestors and I start seeing where the trauma hit in. And I call that familiar demons. The demons that are in your family, the problem areas. And you got Uncle Bob over here and Grandma, Jill over here. They're saying, we're sorry for this, or, the family went through hardship, and you start seeing the patterns. Then I always say my life is like the story of Job. I instantly go towards this person, and I have, people lined up, therapists, hypnotists, dietitians. It doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't, if I do not feel I'm right for somebody, there is a shaman in the group that is right for somebody. There's no ego here. So I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, mine, mine, mine. I might say, you know what? This one is a little bit better with, the LGBTQ, or this one is better with, African American, go to them, that's what's needed here. This is veteran based. Go to this one. But when the ancestors talk to us, we instantly start telling them what the issue is. And that's when the scab is pulled off the wound. And you should see their face. So I had a psychiatrist in from Cleveland Clinic sitting in my office. And, a client said, absolutely, I want to see what the psychiatrist has to say. The psychiatrist said to me, you got out of them in 10 minutes what would take me 10 months. I said, well, you're not speaking to the dead, getting the answers.
Right.
And when you do that shock and awe with them, they are more willing to instantly go into therapy than just kind of hem haw around it, or maybe poke around with the therapist. They go in, and we're getting people turned around within a year. I mean, you notice the difference within a year. We get letters all the time saying, you saved my life. And, but we do house cases. Now we know, you've done house cases. I've done house cases. Tom has done them for 40 years. Most house cases are trauma based.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
That's it. So when we go in and we're like, here is your trauma. This is the ancestor trying to get a hold of you. This is what's going on. And then you have like Father Bob Bailey who can come in, and we have therapists who come in. That's completely okay that you saw, Grandpa Bob standing at the foot of your bed, 20 minutes before he passed, before you got noticed. So it's all about getting this whole system together and healing the line. We carry the DNA trauma in us up to 10 generations. And it's somebody's job to start fixing that and stop passing it on. And, I never thought I'd end up in the paranormal field. Coming to find out that I think the paranormal field really needs help, to be honest.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
You talk about drama and trauma. I mean, man, I feel like it's everywhere in the paranormal field.
Well, it is, and, as much as it drives me crazy, at the same time, people deal with death and they want to stay relevant. So they're dealing with grief and saying, look at me, then they don't know how to handle their grief. So then they create, the chaos and the drama and the lies to be relevant. So if we could just get back to the core of the healing. I mean, I never thought I would have to be on a stage. I've done other stages before within, writing drug policies and politics and all that. That was my past life. But when I say on a stage is, coming forth and being asked to be on shows and stuff, that was never my, goal. I understand it's a means to get Wardruna out there, but, this group is amazing. It's a Rolodex. And we all have our own businesses, but we are a tight knit group that is very trusted. I'm very happy, John Zaffis gives such amazing direction. Great mentor, I can go to him for anything. We have so many people that are in this field that are in the background of Wardruna, saying, this is a good idea. They're supporting us. They're using us, they send us clients. And to me, I'm so grateful to have this opportunity, even if there is drama, the networking and the people that I met, it outweighs, what the
It's
drama
worth it
is.
to you.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. You got to get through it and everything, and, let that human side of you adjust, but push it away and understand you're here for a mission. And as long as the universe wants you to do this, Nobody's going to stop it.
No.
They're not going to stop it. But,
Mm.
I've always been able to talk to the other side, and it was never in my family told not to do it. It's just something we knew what to do. I could go to my mom and say, I saw something. And she's like, well, was it good or bad? Do I need to go get the priest? And we would,
Mm.
as being young, my mom would take me to house clearings, and we'd go to relatives and help them cross over. So death is something that I grew up with. One of the hardest things I ever did is I actually predicted my son's passing when he was 22. And I couldn't stop it. It was like a freight train coming at me that I could not stop.
Wait a second. You saw beforehand?
Yes, correct.
Oh.
I had visits and everything. The day before he passed, the angel of death was actually standing in my house, turned off all the electricity. So, yeah, there was a bunch of things that led up to that, dreams, everything. And then, all the lights went out in the house the day before. Well, it was actually the night before, less than 24 hours. It was probably about 12 hours. And I saw the angel of death, and there was nothing that could be done. So, I am one, I do see death. And oh, hi Lee, I love you too. And I am one that I do see death. And death can be a beautiful transition. As humans, we're terrified of it. November 1st, I don't talk much about this, but November 1st, I actually did die and was brought back, thank goodness, to an internal, defibrillator. But when I was being life flighted from Pennsylvania back to Cleveland, I remember laying in that helicopter and just coming to terms with what just happened. And I told the universe, I'm not ready yet. Or Druna has way too much to go. And I had people standing in front of me. And I even told my son, I gotta let you go. I will see you on the other side at some point, but I was still just grieving that so much. I have work to do. You can help me on the other side, because he does amazingly help me on the other side. I mean, we have him on Spirit Box. He'll come across and he'll go, Mom. He's helped cross spirits over. What people don't understand is when you do pass, the soul is in a vessel. This is what dies. The soul doesn't. And it just goes to the other side. And how I see it when they pass is kind of like this hospital state where I see them laying there, and I can see saints and angels and loved ones. I can even see former pets just loving and hugging and waiting for them to come up. Most people like 3 to 6 months, maybe 9. If you're a really bad person, like maybe Hitler, for a long, long, long time, okay? But, for the most part, people bounce up within like 6 months. I usually see a lot of 3 months. And, from there, they're living their whole life. And I know I believe this, not just as a medium, but after my son passed, I was totally distraught. And I'm in Walmart walking around. I can't even tell you, probably even then, I couldn't tell you what it was for. I was just walking aimlessly around. Some woman I did not know comes up to me and she goes, honey, you just lost your son. And I looked at her, I said, yes, I did. She goes, well,
Out of the
honey,
blue?
out of the blue.
What?
Didn't even know her. She just came and said this to me. She goes, well, I want you to know that he is on a motorcycle and he is just riding up the West Coast in these hills. And I stopped and I looked at her and I says, thank you. My son was coming home to buy a motorcycle. He never had one. And he wanted one. So here's a woman I do not know. My hair keeps tickling my face from the wind. Here's a woman I did not know, gave me this beautiful message. And, when you do these, when you read for people and when you see the dead or see some of the stuff I see, I always go, I'm not going to say anything to anybody because I'm not sure if I need a lobotomy, lithium, and a straight jacket here. And, some of the stuff that falls out of my mouth, I'm just like, I didn't mean to say that. Like, well, let's see how that plays out. And it plays out like a T. I mean, just like somebody hits the back of your head and, you just spit out these words. But when somebody you don't know comes to you in the women's clothing section and says this to you, it takes you back as somebody who does this, themselves. I even questioned who she was because I caught myself, looked down, wiped the tears off, looked back up, and she was gone.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And I was in the middle of this section, and, no matter where I should have been able to see her, and I didn't. So, I know there's something on the other side, and I have to say that I think is way more beautiful than where we are now. How I look at Earth is I just see it as hell, because nobody should bury their child. Nobody should suffer. Nobody should go hungry. To me, this itself is hell.
The devil's to and fro. So
Yeah, exactly. That's what I always say about Job. We have to navigate
yeah,
this. And, you know, when we shed, basically being born into sin, that's the body. This is sin. And Lee Trian said hi. Um, we're ruled by the senses. And, the senses can have anything from drug addiction to food addiction to porn addiction. These things have to have, a balance. You can have alcohol, you can do any of this. And, but we need, to eat, we need to breathe, we need to do these things, we need touch, but it's the balance. And that
yeah,
is where temptation, comes in. And, we are born into this sin. So once you release this and you cross over, this is all gone. All of this is gone. And I mean, the sad part and the grieving part is ruled by the senses, because you don't get to see a person or hear a person or touch a person or smell their scent. You know what I mean? You miss those things. And so the brain is ruled by the, chemicals, and then it drops, and then there's grief and depression. And that's where Wardruna comes in, because you do hear the special message from many of these shamans and amazing, mediums. And then we get you the right therapy that you need. I mean, Tom and I have spent many of nights getting people to the hospital that they need, talking them off the cliff and straight into the emergency room. As we're calling social work there and setting it up. And, there's a lot to this job that, you don't get paid for, but that's not what it's about. I retired this really nice company, and I told the universe, you better keep my lights on. Like, I need to eat. I need a roof over my head. You told me to do this, and now it's this. And literally 72 hours of making the announcement that I was closing the doors on a very successful business, I was asked to be, to co-host a podcast, be on a TV show. I mean, within, I would say, 2 weeks of that, I met Tom, at least through, communication. And it took months to actually then, officially meet him. And, when Tom came in, I looked at Gina, and I'll tell you how I met her. I love this woman. I looked at Gina and I said, I think it's time to hand Wardruna off. I'm tired. I have been running businesses since I have been 24 years old. And I'm tired. I just want to sit back and I want to work. And she goes, what are you thinking? I said, the Archangel. She goes, it's exactly who I was thinking. And, so we made the call and said, would you like to run Wardruna for us? And he's like, yes, absolutely, yes. So Tom came on, and the three of us have an amazing group of people that know what they are doing. I mean, I have clients that I have pushed them through the whole system. You need to go to Lee Trian. You need to go to Samaya. Oh, now there's Raven. Whoop, let's get Larry involved. Now it's Jeannie's turn, It's like, go to the therapist, that's what it's about, working, and working as a network. I mean, I don't hear what the other ones have to say unless the client comes forward. I have to say, the one therapist, the one that's really good at the EMDR, we designed a type of EMDR and soul retrieval therapy. As they're doing EMDR, I'm actually doing a soul retrieval and stitching up the crack there as they're diminishing that memory.
mm,
And it has really worked. And, Gina herself, she was a godsend. I'm going to tell you how I met her. And this
yeah.
is how the universe has actually played out everything for me. When they say we will put everybody in your path, they literally put everybody in my path. So, I'm running this occupational health and safety. I mean, I am working 120 hours a week. You have to ask Gina because we still do not know how I was functioning and doing this. I was a crazy woman. And outages aren't an easy thing to work. You got 2,500 guys on a site, you got 16 plants down, and I'm still recovering from all those years of working. But I had a friend, she lived in Tennessee, and she was on a psychic network. I met her through another friend, and I will just say this woman is crazy. I'm not trying to be mean, but she is a reader. But she's just not altogether there. And she would always call me for readings, and I finally had to cut her off. Like, I can't deal with you anymore. So she was calling, this friend of mine in Tennessee. That's how we were introduced. And one night we were looking down through all of the reviews. Like, this woman literally calls every medium, every psychic, every tarot reader. I'm like, how does she make any money on this site if she's then purchasing reads? And you have to be on with that reader for 5 minutes to be able to leave a review. And some of these people are like $20 a minute. So, I mean, we were like, this is crazy. So I knew it was a Wednesday because her husband always played poker on a Wednesday. So I said, honey, I got to go to bed. I need to get up for work in the morning. So I shut my laptop, didn't turn off, just shut it down, went into bed, and I'm laying there and my blankets are ripped off of me. I'm like, not tonight, guys. And I pull the blankets back up, rip them back off of me. I said, not tonight. And there's a spirit standing there going, but my daughter needs your help. Can you call my granddaughter? I said, I don't even know who your granddaughter is. I don't even know how to get in touch with her. So I'm fighting with this spirit, fighting in this blanket, yelling in my apartment, just let me sleep. Finally, I'm like, fine. I'm so pissed off. Go to the kitchen. I make a hot cup of tea. I sit down at the dining room table. And I said, how would you like me to find your granddaughter? She goes, open the laptop. So I open the laptop and I have to hit enter because I just shut it. So I have to hit enter and it pops up and here's the site. Now there is this beautiful brown girl right there, featured psychic. And I'm looking at her going, I didn't see her when we were going down through the reviews. And this spirit says to me, that's my granddaughter. I said, but how? You're white and she's brown. She goes, my daughter married a black man. I said, and okay, you got me there. And I says, so what do you want me to do? She goes, call her. I went, whoa, I got to pay to talk to her? She goes, please. She goes, my daughter is sick. And at that moment, my right breast went on fire, down my side, into my armpit. And I'm like, oh, she's on fire. I'm a medical intuitive. I pick these things up. So I went and I created an account, put my debit card on, and put $20 on this account. So I call her and she pops up and goes, hi, this is Gina. I like when she tells the version of it because she's like, you were so pissed off. And I'm like, hi, Gina, I'm Stacia. She starts reading me and I'm like, no, just be quiet. I need to give you a message. And she goes, ma'am, you're paying for this. I said, I don't care. Your grandma won't let me alone and I need to get a message to you. Now I'm arguing back and forth with this woman and it shuts down and says, I have to add more money. And I'm like, no. So I put more money on. Now her and I are arguing back and forth. I'm like, would you just let me give you this message? She's like, but ma'am, I said, we're going back and forth. And it's like, you need to add more money. And I'm like looking at the spirit. She's like, please, my daughter's sick. I'm like, so I get back on. I'm like, listen to me. I just need to give you this message. So I start telling her and we start talking and we start talking and we start talking. And I'm not even paying attention because I had hit the option of stopping it, like just take the money out of the account. And I look over $300 later.
Oh, wow.
I have a best friend. I just said to her, ma'am, I got to go to bed. You got the message. Nice talking to you. So I'm at work the next day and I get this email in my regular email because I didn't realize they had email boxes and it shoots over to your regular email. And it's like, I feel so bad about this. Can I have your email address? Because you could only, the key. So I went over to that, gave that. Then in my regular email, she goes, can I have your phone number? So I gave her a phone number and we started talking. She goes, let me give you this money back. I said, absolutely not. I said, I have the money. I said, I'm doing very well for myself. I said, clearly your grandma knows you need money. And she goes, I just left my husband. And she goes, I have nothing. And she goes, I wasn't even supposed to be reading last night. I got on at the last minute. And she goes, that's never a time that I'm on. And I said, well, she wanted to give a message. Well, her mother did go into the hospital for 2 weeks. She had C. diff and she was sick. So, anyways, she got her mother checked. Her mother went into the hospital. Gina and I have now been friends for almost 2 decades. So she was, she was one of those surprises in my life. And I'm very blessed. So when I started telling her about this vision that I have and this, system called Wardruna, she's like, you're really going to be known. I said, oh, no, we're really going to be known. And she's like, yeah, no, I'm not going with you. I'm like, no, yeah, you are. She's like, no, I'm not. I'm like, oh, yes, you are. So I started like, well, we have to go to this house or that. She goes, no, don't you see what color I am? They always off the brown person in the movies first. You're not getting me to go. So I'm like, but you're coming. It's okay. I'll go in first. So I remember when we started, I met Tom and everything, and we were on this program, and we had to go to a certain house in Enfield, Connecticut. We'll just leave it at that. And I called her up and says, we need to go. And she's like, oh, hell no. I said, yes, you're going. She ends up going. And the funniest part of this is she smoked these people out of their house so bad. She's just going through. I mean, you couldn't, it was like Cheech and Chong was in that house. And she's great. We've been doing work. We speak about this. We're very passionate. She's an amazing healer, amazing Reiki healer. I'm just very honored to have her as one of my dearest friends and my partner in crime for the last 20 years. And you're going to see a lot more of us, speaking. We have a huge tour schedule. And no, she can talk to the dead. She doesn't like talking to the dead. She goes, I leave that to you. And hold on. This is the Internal Ex Wolfpack Paranormal. Says, hello, everybody.
Sean.
Sean. Hi, Sean. Yeah, but we had professors and psychology students and everything packing the house last year to just listen to Gina, Tom, and I speak. Because, they want to help people. People are afraid of death. People are also grieving. And then there's also the trauma elements, not knowing how to deal with it. When my mom passed away, and I took care of my mother when she was dying, and Gina was there for me because my mother was very abusive to me. She didn't heal
Your
her
mom
trauma.
was?
What was that?
You said your mom?
Yes, my mom
Oh,
was.
wow.
My mother was a very unhealed soul. So she had borderline personality with narcissistic tendencies and schizoaffective disorder. Made a very fun childhood. I was her target. I was the oldest one. And, there was a lot of resentment, a lot of anger, between her and I just shut the door on her at times. But when she was sick, I was sitting in my apartment. And I heard one of my guides say, go to your mother's house. I'm like, no, I'm not talking to her. I haven't talked to her in like 9 months. Why do I want to go there? They're like, no, you really need to go. I'm like, damn it. So I go to my mother's house and there's nobody there. And I'm waiting and the phone rings. I had the dog out and stuff. And I go into the house and I see it's the hospital. And I answer the phone and it was her doctor who we all knew. And she's like, which girl is this? Because we all sound alike. I said, it's Stacia. She goes, your mother has pancreatic cancer. Please be there for her. She's on her way home. Right then, my mom walks in the door and she sits down and she's like, this is going to be the one that gets me. And I said, I know it is. And I didn't leave her side. And I took amazing care of her. I was burning offerings as she was in the hospital at the cemetery. It was the old Russian Orthodox Byzantine cemetery for the family. I went up late one night. And I heard a male voice on this side of me say, you will take the last Eucharist with your mother. Now, many things don't freak me out, but I am in the Appalachians in this backwoods little cemetery off a dirt road, no street lights, 9 o'clock at night in November. Let's leave that there. And I turn around and there's nobody there. I scurry to my car, go to my mother's house to feed my son and let out the dog. And I called Gina and she goes, "Who do you think it was?" I said, "It was Jesus." Like, I know I was burning frankincense and myrrh. Like, I got this message. So, we go through the whole, I'm taking care of my mother. She keeps saying the pastor is going to come give her communion. Never happens. The last month my mother was alive, it was actually like the last 3 weeks. She wasn't on chemo. She just had radiation. I went back to my apartment, would come up during the day. My dad had literally just retired as an over the road truck driver as she was being diagnosed. So they needed that little bit of alone time. They were high school sweethearts. They needed that. So I come up one day, it was May 15th, and I walk in and I'm looking at her and she goes, "The pastor's coming for communion and I can feel him in movement." And she said to me, she goes, "Are you taking communion with me today?" I said, "No, I don't think so." I'm not going to. And she's like, "But you have to." And I'm like, "Yeah, no, I don't." She goes, "Oh, come on, you haven't fallen that much." I'm like, "I haven't fallen at all. I'm not taking it." I walk outside and of course I call Gina. Gina goes, "You have to take it." I said, "I'm not taking it. I don't care. I'm not taking it." I hang up with Gina. I go through the house. It's this big old house. I get to the front and the door opens. There's the pastor. He goes, "Hey, Stace, are you taking communion with us today?" And I said, "Yes." And I'm like, "Where the hell did that fall out?" Now I can't, I don't want to look like an idiot. So I sit down and he gives me the body of Christ and I take it and I close my eyes and I watch his golden arch open up and I
Mm-hmm.
watch his silhouette walk through it. When I opened my eyes, the pastor was looking at me and he said, "Child, what did you see?" And I just shook my head and he put, "The blood of Christ." Well, he goes, "Bless you, child, the blood of Christ shed for you." And I took it. So that night on the 15th, my mother, well, actually early in the morning of the 16th, my mother was rushed to the hospital. They, a procedure that they did, she had pancreatic cancer where they put the rod in, nicked an artery. She was internal bleeding. That's what actually got
Oh,
her. And every time they gave her pain medicine, she would just crash. So we had to make this choice, either put her in a coma, talk about this in a week, or just keep sedating her. And she, passes away. So on May 17th, my mother passed away, you know, probably like 36 hours after I took communion with her. And then when my son passed, I remember laying on the couch and, my now ex-husband, he looked at me and he goes, "Stacia, Paige is pregnant." They were on their way home to tell me that, they were going to have a baby. And I remember sitting up looking, saying, "He's going to be born May 17th and it's a boy." So his due date was June 6th. And I'm like, "No, it's going to be May 17th. It's going to be on the same day that my mother died." I'm telling you, the same day. Paige was rushed in for a preeclampsia emergency C-section. She had the baby May 17th. It was a little boy. So, but yeah, I mean,
how far down can you see like that? I mean, did she just find out she's pregnant, or
yeah,
was
she had
it?
just found out she was
Oh,
pregnant. But
oh,
I was told May 17th it's going to be a boy. She was only like 6 weeks pregnant. I mean, I sat up off the couch and said that and laid back down. But what I was getting at with my mom, I took wonderful care of my mother. I really, really did. And it was amazing care. I gave her spas. She didn't have one bed sore, whatever she wanted, I gave to her. And I remember looking at her and she goes, "It's nice to finally get to know you." And I said, "You had 40 years to get to know me. This right now is not the time." And she goes, "Don't be like that." I said, "Mom, I love you." I said, "You need to get right with your maker. I will be judged for how I treated you. You will be judged for how you treated me." And I was very much at peace with how I took care of my mother when she was dying. And, sometime down the road, I got mad. A
did you
memory
really
kicks up.
forgive her though?
Well, that was it. I thought, I forgave her. And then it was probably like a year down the road, I get this ping and a memory comes up. And now I'm ticked off. I am literally ticked off. I have nobody to be mad at. I have nobody to yell at, you know what I mean? Or ask why. So I had to start working through that. And it was a hard process. But what got me through it is I sat one day and I was talking to Gina, and I was talking to my youngest sister, Sadie. She's 13 years younger than I am. And we were talking about things that our mother did with us, like mushroom hunting. We loved to mushroom hunt on the weekends. It was a fan, the family did it. There was the garden, there was the canning, there was the sewing. My dad taught me how to lay brick and run wire. And I mean, Lord knows if, the world goes kaput, I know how to live. I know how to survive. I mean, seriously. But, I remember laughing with my sister saying, I enjoyed doing this. I remember sitting and my mom teaching me how to crochet. I get off the phone and I went, that was my mother's love language. I have to stop focusing on the unhealed part of my mother that came at me and focus on the part of what was her love language. Love language doesn't always look like what we would see on a Hallmark movie or Leave It to Beaver. You know what I mean?
It's what brings her peace.
Exactly. And my mother enjoyed doing these things and taught us how to do them. And I enjoyed crocheting with her. And I enjoyed mushroom picking and gardening and canning and baking. I enjoyed doing that. I would always be the one to go up on the holiday and make sure her house was cleaned with her. Because, there was just times she had depression. I would go up and get it ready. I would help her bake. I did all that. And I'm like, no, I'm going to focus on those happy moments. That's the love language. Now, there are times things come up and I call the therapist and say, I need a session. And I go within, EMDR, it gets knocked down and I go back to the love language again. So it's really recognizing it. You just can't suppress it. And that's what I was doing. And I realized I was so mad underneath. But when I realized, the art of love language, and I speak, very heavily on this now, like, tell me the good time. And let me tell you, there are some people out there who don't have love language at all. And, those are the harder cases. They really, really are.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you can get people into this love language and start working on that. And then through therapy, knocking it out with EMDR, there's different techniques, to help you. And just focusing. And, I even say, like, listen, go crochet a blanket, go fix a car, go use your dad's tools. And I get back, that really brought me joy. Like, make that casserole for Easter, Easter's was a good time for your mother. She loved that. Because I've had ancestors always give me dishes and I always go, okay, they're going to make me, why I'm fat. They make me hungry after each session, it's like they show me the food, but what do you think, you remember of people?
Stacia, have you and I had this conversation before?
No.
Are you sure?
Pretty sure.
Because when you said Carpathian, or it was like I was having a bad deja vu moment. Because it seems like I've heard you say that, or I
could have been on one of the other shows.
But you were saying it to me, though.
Yeah, I've never talked to you about that. We're just connected.
That's pretty wild. That's pretty wild. Because I'm this whole time that we had here, you keep saying stuff that is lighting up like a deja vu moment.
But you know what that means? It means you're on the right spot and in the path in life. That's that download. That's where the soul remembers something, and it's that connection.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. That's good to know. That's good to know.
Yeah, we'll have to, Stacia, we'll explain what a mole for is. Oh, yes, I can do that. Thank you. So a mole for, in my culture, the family is completely gifted. And it is a small group that is in the Carpathian Mountains. There's less than 1 million of us left. There's only like 130,000 of us identified. So a lot of them came over before World War I. During World War I, they were being persecuted and rounded up, and the Russians were being put in Telehofen in Hungary. So they were putting in internment camps. So with the family being very gifted every once in a while, one rises and they're kind of spooky gifted. And in Ukraine, they're called mulfors. In Poland, they're called wind whisperers. So it actually is a shaman. Shaman is actually a word that comes from Russia. So I do have Siberian blood in me. That
Shaman?
is a, yes, shaman. The word shaman actually is a Russian word. It comes
Wow.
from
I thought it was an
Siberia.
Indian word.
No, it comes from Siberia.
Mm.
So I do have Siberian in me. That's part of the Rusin bloodline. I always say they're kind of like the Amish of the Northern Europeans. They don't have a designated state. They live in a mountain range. So they live over territory. So you can be Rusin and Ukrainian, Rusin and Russian, Rusin and Siberian, or Rusin and Polish. So there is it's like I said, it's a mountain range. But the Mulfor it is their name for their shaman. Um, you know, the difference with the Rusins, they were labeled the people of God. And I am very connected to the saints and the angels and the deities. And, I've had messages from Christ. I even had, I was in ceremony, lighting candles and doing, I do Psalms magic. So I teach people what Psalms they need for protection or whatever. And we had candles lit. I said, something's here. And I turned it on. I said, who's here? And you heard on the box, Jesus Christ, now pray. Oh, I prayed that 2.5 hours. I prayed while that candle was burning. But I've had a lot of the deities and the angels, they come through on the spirit box. And
Oh,
that's
wow.
yeah, it's not just me saying that. There has been groups of people. Tom was present with one. There's only one spirit box. This happens. I can't get spirits to talk on it. Only the deities and the angels. And I told this to Tom. I said, watch this. And I turn it on. And he walks over. He goes, who's here? And you heard the gods. He jumped back. I said, well, they're in the house. And he went, wow. I said, yeah, they make themselves known. I said, it's only on this one spirit box. I says, it's just for them. But it is connecting to the other side. It is understanding Mother Earth. It is hearing plants talk. That's what I said. I hear and see things that I should probably be on lithium for. That's what they would want to put me on. But, the messages are real. They're true. I can, I will say, here's the message. Well, how do you know? Well, that flower told me. What? And they go down 2 weeks later, they call me and they're like, oh, that flower was spot on. I'm like, I know, right? Now go buy those flowers, put them on your grandma's grave. So, but yeah, that's what a mulfor is. It's, a Kievan Rus. That's the area my family's from. It is their term for a shaman. It's called mulfor.
That's very interesting, because when you think of shaman, if you don't know anything or have like ancestral background, when you think of shaman, you think of like a medicine healer, like
Mhm.
something like something like a medicine healer of an Indian tribe,
Yes.
and so, I mean, are you guys linked in like Carpathian and things like that, linked in with like animals, nature?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I can speak to the animals. That's why I said, even with nature, I mean, I have everything that talks to me. And
Mm,
I will have animals that just come to me and give me the message. And I'm like, okay, that's this message. I need to do this. Animals, I communicate very well with animals. I get calls where somebody's like, can you tell me what's wrong with my horse or my dog? And I will say, well, the dog's having seizures. And what's funny, because my friend here, she did that. I kept saying, your dog's having seizures. She's like, no, sir. I said, yeah, no, your dog's having seizures. Dang it, she took it. And she's like, you were right. I said, yeah, I felt it. I could feel what was happening with the dog. But yeah, no, we're linked into all that. We do medicine healing. I am a healer.
my
I,
wife is too.
what's that?
My wife
That's
is
beautiful.
she's a healer. Um, I couldn't even put my foot. I couldn't walk right for 2.5 years, and I couldn't put my left heel down at all. I had a crack in my lumbar, and
Oh,
it was causing excruciating pain. And whenever you go to try to put your heel down, uh, it brought so much agony. And she prayed over my back, and uh, that night, I felt so much radiated heat
Yes.
coming off of her hand that it was almost sweaty
Yeah.
and she wasn't touching me yet.
Yeah.
And she prayed really hard, and she gave everything, and when she was done she had tears coming down, so I know that this was like a real emotional prayer for her.
Yeah.
And
That's love.
when she did, I sat back down, and she was like, "Do you feel anything different?" And I'm like, "I'm not sure. I don't think it happens that fast." Sure enough, I'm sitting in a chair, and I stood up blindsidedly. Not even thinking, not thinking about nothing. I stood up, and my left heel was down,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Hold on a second." And for the first time in 2.5 years, I was able to do that. And so, like, she's Knights Templar with me, when we work cases and stuff like that. She's a healer. She's helped many. I've got reference papers that people have wrote us and stuff like that. And Angie is a big part of that.
See, and that's beautiful. The highest vibration is love. And when you're giving love and you have true intention and asking the spirit to come down through, a healing will be, given. I do Reiki. I've done healings. I prefer to use the word. Does that make sense?
I'm still trying to learn about this Reiki thing. I'm familiar with it, but I'm not like versed in it. I'm still trying to figure out, because it seems like people have different meanings to what they believe Reiki is. Like, I've never heard something consistent, from anybody.
Yeah. When I do Reiki, I open myself up to the universe and I pull the spirit down. I ask for the spirit to come down. That's how I do my Reiki. You know,
Mm,
um, I was raised with Orthodox Byzantine, beliefs. But I still also believe in the
I'm
deities.
apostolic. I'm apostolic too. Like our church is Archangel Apostolic Fellowship, and I
Yes.
am part of the Order of Archangels.
See, that's beautiful. And see, but I still believe, I believe in the angels, I believe in the fallen, I believe in the deities. It is a certain type of Orthodox religion where it is orthodoxy with paganism, so I see the layers and I understand why that they're
With
there.
paganism?
What's that?
With paganism?
Correct. Yes. Yeah, I'll
Oh,
send you an article on it. Yeah, it's a little different but yeah, I mean, what it does is it actually opens up and they understand, the orders. It's more like kind of like Enoch. It talks about, the different layers and everything's
oh,
there for a
okay.
reason. And so I get messages from all of them, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Everything's warning, everything's, but love is the highest vibration. And that's where the healing comes in. I choose to use words, I have laid hands. But I like the form of communication. I like talking to the spirits, pulling that in.
Hmm.
I open up the spirit right before somebody comes in. As that's how I do it. But yeah, no. The thing is, everybody wants to be a shaman. I think it's what they think is the cool term now. You cannot take a class to become a shaman.
See, that's
You
another
just
thing I was going to ask you is, like, how are these people just coming out sitting there saying, "Oh, like you you were just into paranormal investigating and everything is, and now you're calling yourself a shaman." I mean, how was that?
Yeah, see, because it's the new cool phrase. I know people who've taken classes who understood they had a shamanic, journey, and they landed in a class and they are shamans. But not everybody can take a shamanic class and be a shaman. Not everybody can take peyote and DMT and everything and they have a moment of speaking to the universe and then say that they're a shaman. There's actually things like my mother was born with extra bones in her feet. I had extra teeth. I have extra electrical hardware. My mother and I both always suffered from illnesses. I have had everything possibly happen to me. Like I have not had an easy life. Shamans don't have easy lives. So it's like, oh, I want to be this and this is what I am. You can have a shamanic practice, but that doesn't mean you're a shaman. It's two different things. And I always
Mm.
say, be very careful saying that's what you want to be, because life as a shaman is not easy. It's
You're
not all
taking the
about.
burdens on of other people too.
Absolutely. And like you just be very careful what you ask for, because my life has not been easy. And you still have to walk a path of forgiveness and love. There's sometimes I forget to set boundaries. I let things go a lot. And I know this one guide came to me and said, just because you're spiritual doesn't mean you can't get mad. And I'm like,
Mm.
okay, setting
Good point.
boundaries. Yeah, like, okay, setting boundaries. And it's something, that I'm working on. There's a lot of ego in this industry, and it's actually really,
Very
really
much so.
sad. Oh, yeah. I mean, the things that I have seen and experienced, and people coming as friends and then lying. And I'm just like, what's the end game here for you? But we did Lee Tran and Gwen, and I mean, oh, Christina Bloom, Gina, Diana. I mean, it was great. We all worked on Johnny Zaffis and at the Connecticut Paracon. And Lee Tran goes, because I was at his head and she was standing to my left, and I looked at her and she's like, I could hear you talking to me and your mouth was not moving. I said, yeah, I'm telepathic. She goes, that was the coolest thing ever. She goes, I instantly just knew what to do and where to work by looking at you. And I would do that down the line to everybody. I'd like look at them and they just would instantly start working. They're like, we heard you talking. I'm like, I know. I said,
Mm.
yeah. But that's what I do, when I do Reiki healing or I do any type of, communication. The telepathic thing, I laugh. I had to get a hold of that because as a teenager, I would actually tell on myself in my sleep.
Mm.
And my mom would pull me out of bed and then,
So it started pretty young for you,
yes,
like you were, like you knew you were different from a very young age.
I came out of the womb like this.
Oh, there was no
There was no,
gapping.
no, there was no gap. And
Wow.
when you also have a family who understands this, they support it, you grow. So there was none of that, after this, after my divorce, this happened, or after my son passed, or after menopause. I've always been like this. I mean, I looked at my mother when I was 4 years old. We were going to her sister's house, and I pointed at the power plant and I said, I'm going to work at that cloud maker someday. Well, 32 years later, that power plant reached out to me and said, we've heard about you. We would like to interview you. I didn't apply to that. Went to that power plant
They
and got
found
hired.
you.
They found me. They heard about me.
Wow.
I was within the unions and I was within politics and everything. So it didn't take long that the union bosses and stuff were talking to the power plants about me. And they said, okay, we heard about you. I also was friends with the main security guy there. Then also my neighbor growing up, God love Gene, he was one of the big bosses. And I always bugged this guy and, he knew what I was up to. So when I went in there, I just said, how did you get my number? And why did you call me? They said, oh, when Gene puts a request in, you need to listen. I went, oh my God, my neighbor guy, and he's like, and the unions have been, telling us about you and everything. So yeah, I swooped, right in, not on what I knew, on who I knew. I'm not going to lie. And when I looked at the power plants, I said, why do you want to hire me? I said, I don't know anything that you want me to do. And they said, no, no,
Mm.
we want to build you. We're tired of people telling us what we need. We know what we need and we're going to build that.
Mm.
So like the first year, all I did was hire subcontractors until I learned how to do certain things. If I wasn't, certified for that, I would just hire the contractor in and But, it was like air quality. It was everything. It was the blood draws. I called, units in to do that, and, drug testing, all of it. But, yeah, I mean, I did it for almost 20 years.
That's amazing. That's amazing. You have such a strong presence and just a good story, that you'll always be able to back up on, because like you have a very fulfilled life, and I'm glad to have this conversation with you, even though I promise you, I think we've had this conversation before.
We were probably traveling and, the astral
And I'll tell
realm
you another
talking
thing
about it.
too. When you said, as soon as you said Carpathian, that's when it all came around. It all came around because I've got another friend who is ancestral with Carpathian too, Catherine Cirillos.
Really?
Yep.
Is she Rusin?
She's out of Greece.
Okay, so listen, that's funny. So my sister did the 23andMe, and she goes, "Where the heck did this little smidge of Greek get in our family DNA?" And I said, "I don't know." And I mean, I do. I have red curly hair, but you can have that in Russia. And I'm just like, Tom's always go, "No, that's Greek." That you have Greek hair.
Mm.
But, when I looked at it, I says, "Sadie, I don't know where this, Greek slipped into the family line." So in 700 AD, under the god Velez, it's the only peace treaty signed under the god Velez, who is the second in their pantheon. The Greeks and the Rusins signed this peace treaty for trade in the Mesopotamias.
Mm.
So that's where the Carpathian Mountains and the Greeks tie in.
I got you. Yeah, because I always wondered that about her too, and I was even thinking, I'm like, I wonder if it's because she told me that. Am I thinking that we've had this conversation? But no. I remember. It's like we're doing this again.
See, that's
I don't know. It's strange. But Stacia, listen, we're at the top of the hour here, and
Yes.
can you tell everybody how to get a hold of you?
Yes, you can go on Facebook. You do Wardruna Stacia Wills, and you can message me that way. Also, my phone number is 814-475-0100. You can also, get a hold of me through, Thomas Patrick. You can find that way, or even just contact anybody on the
She's not hard
show.
to find, guys. She's not
Yeah,
hard to find.
you can,
Mm.
message Gwen or Lee, and they can direct you, right to me. Shane, you have my information. If
Yep.
anybody out there, just, send them to me. But yeah, we do have a website that we're working on. We're getting it ready. We're going to be doing the finishing touches. We had to get everybody's profile up there. But
Yep.
yeah, I mean, I'm not hard to get a hold of, and I will always make somebody fit into the schedule.
Thank you, and thank you for being such an amazing guest. I mean, this
Thank
is,
you.
I feel like I can talk to you, for a long, long time, and I wish we had more time, because I do have some other questions for you. But that just lets me know that we need a round two on this.
Perfect.
Which I really believe it's round three, but I'll come to think of it later, and there's a reason why I'm feeling that way. But I thank you so much for being an amazing guest, and thank you for taking the time out of your vacation, to come on this show. It means a lot. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. You have
All
a
right,
good night,
Stacia.
sir.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Well, guys, I mean, you guys heard it all. I mean, she's so full of life, and it's just amazing to hear, her journey. And like I said, guys, I'm telling you, I've had that conversation with her before. I don't know where, but that whole conversation, she kept hitting stuff.
Happens, Shane. It happens. It does.
She kept hitting stuff to where it's like, you've already told me that. And it's strange, but guys, she's amazing. You guys look her up. She is not hard to find. She's everywhere in the paranormal field. Wadruna, you can look her up. You can contact just about anybody on this network, and they know how to get a hold of Stacia also. She does amazing work, and you know, you guys look her up and just follow her and just watch the amazing things that they do together. Well, hey Mom, I saw you on there. I saw you post, and hey, there you are. There you are.
So sweet.
And I saw you on there, so don't think I forgot about you or nothing like that. Thank you for coming on. All right, you guys have a very good week. We're gonna have some awesome guests lined up, and I really look forward to seeing the direction that this show particular is going. And but you guys stay safe and be blessed always, and stay spooky, people. Peace.